Lentvaris Manor was acquired by Juozapas Tiškevičius in the middle of the 19th century. Soon the manor palace, typical of the Romanticism era, appeared here, surrounded by a park designed by Édouard André, as well as the wire and nail factory was built. At the turn of the century, the palace was transformed into a building of neo-Gothic architecture, more typical of European manors. The main accent here is a graceful six-story tower. Rustic stones, window architraves and cornices, highlighted in light color in the note-plastered facade, reflect the historical traditions of Benelux and Great Britain of the second half of the 19th century. Neo-Gothic forms are most prominent in the central avant-core of the front facade and its decorative elements. Bas-reliefs depicting the coat of arms of Tiškevičius and Lubomirsky families are hanging above the central entrance. Other avant-core of the palace diversify the architectural composition of the palace. One of the most interesting structures here is the water tower of massive forms. The building of utilitarian architecture, decorated with architrave of Gothic forms and pinnacles, matches the exterior of the palace. Unlike most neo-Romanesque churches in Lithuania, the sanctuary of Lentvaris, built at the beginning of the 20th century, follows the Italian tradition rather than the German one. It has been designed under the commission of the Count Tiškevičius by the Italian Orsione Bonghi, according to the example of the old Lombardy churches. The building is dominated by rounded windows, round small windows, and arcatures of Romanesque forms, and at the top of the tower, as well as in the apse, we can see a motif of three-segment windows, which was common in the Romanesque era. The portals of the sanctuary are made of blocks of ashlar. Although the interior is rather far from the original project, architectural forms suggest Romanesque here as well. The Gothic Trakai Basilica, mentioned for the first time as early as in 1409, acquired its current Baroque appearance with hints of Classicism in the first half of the 18th century. The Gothic here is reminded only by the layout of the building and the stepped buttresses. In the corner connecting the sacristy and the apse, we can see an uncovered authentic masonry fragment with a Gothic pattern. The latest towers are already influenced by Classicism, though the pediments embedded between them are of the Baroque forms. The old profiled brick structures and the murals of the 15th century Byzantine style can be seen inside. And yet the interior is dominated by the Baroque forms, with the ornate great altar in front. The silhouette of the Old Trakai church is similar to the monastery, which is revealed by the layout resembling letter L. It was rebuilt from the former 16th century Benedictine monastery in 1899. The lateral facades are laconic, only the large niches of the pointed arched windows are prominent here, as well as thin lycenas and a modest cornice. The main accent of the building is four buttresses, which transform into pinnacles, and the latter, joined by non-plastered arcatures, form particular attic walls. A modest Gothic portal and a round window are surrounded by a profiled non-plastered architrave. Elements of the equipment, such as the altars of eclectic forms and the neo-Gothic organ, are highlighted by decorative accents inside the church. Anushki's church, built by the local landlords Tiškevičiai in 1829, is an example of the classicistic architecture, where plastered bricks are combined with a small stone masonry. The building has rectangular layout, typical of classicism, and a portico. Unusually thin columns are in contrast to the white capitals and square pilasters. The sculptures of evangelists incorporated into the niches are a hint to Vilnius Cathedral. The naves of the church, divided by pillars, are covered with cylindrical domes inside. Rikantai Church of eclectic architecture stands on a small hill between a motorway and a railway. Although there are quite a few Gothic elements, this sanctum is important as an example of a rare Renaissance style in Lithuania. Just as a majority of the Renaissance sanctums, Rikantai Church is related to the Reformation. The local landlords built it for the Reformed evangelic community in the 16th century. It is one of the first three-nave hall churches in Lithuania without a tower. The Gothic structure is reflected by massive buttresses and pointed arched windows. The pediment of strict forms, massive cornice, rounded and rectangular niches, as well as pilasters are the elements of the later style. A mural portraying Saint George appeared after the church was taken over by the Catholics. The structures of the cross vaults are held by two rows of columns, and the Baroque murals complementing the interior date back to the 17th century. Nine Dominican saints are portrayed on the edge of the organ choir, and there are two portraits of the Aginski at the presbytery.